Mr. Silverdeck.
Norm Silverdick, 70 Tide Mill Road. I'd like to address the issue of the $100,000 alleged contract that was encumbered at the discussed at its January 14th meeting. The $100,000 encumbrance has brought to light not only the legality of it, but also the lack of transparency between town management and the Board of Selectmen, including a violation of town purchasing policy. The item had never been discussed at a public meeting. The shocked response of some of the members of the Board of Selectmen would lead me to believe that they were hearing it for the first time. The town manager and the finance director must have known that they would need public approval for the project by the Board of Selectmen prior to initiating any legitimate purchase order activity. The purchasing policy violation is blatant and needs no further elaboration. Making a statement, as Mr. Moore did to the newspaper, that this was the way it was done in the past doesn't make it right. Mr. Griffin, as chairman, clearly failed to acknowledge the impropriety here and brings to question his competency as an elected selectman. These two selectmen in particular should know that this kind of management led to a $1.4 million year-end spending spree in 2005 when they were on the board. I don't understand how Chairman Griffin and Selectman Moore can be so enabling in allowing a return to the lack of transparency of the past or supporting 6 to 7% tax increases for 2013, given the public's response to what went on during their earlier years on the Board of Selectmen. The right thing to do is immediately reverse your decision and follow the rules. I caution the board and the town manager that Hampton is faced with substantial capital spending for infrastructure and schools somewhere between $65 to $100 million. Careful analysis and planning must take place so that the taxpayers can absorb these expenditures in an orderly manner. This is a truly daunting task and will require us to be at our best. We cannot afford to play games or act recklessly in dealing with them. We cannot afford cost overruns and poorly thought out and unjustified projects. We need to carefully look at new technologies, alternate spending plans, and prioritization. You have a great responsibility going forward, and I ask that you pay particular attention to safeguarding the resources that you're being held responsible for. We as taxpayers should not have to doubt your motives and methods of doing business, which is exactly what we are doing when nonsense such as phony POs and accounting gimmicks are used to promote political agendas in an environment that lacks transparency. Mr. Griffin, Mr. Moore, and Mr. Bean, you have to remember you are the representatives of the taxpayers, not special interest groups.
Any other public comment?
Yep. Here, 16 Presidential Circle. Was very disappointed last Monday to review what happened here. Finance Director summarized the end-of-year status. Surplus is gone. He had initially projected a couple $100,000 in November. And all spending of operating expenses was spent, 99.85 he indicated. A major PO drove the encumbrances of $100,000 with a local contractor for the Route 1 and Winnicott intersection project. There are $732 worth of open POs going into 2013. Selectman Pierce immediately questioned the $100K, and the rationale given by the Director of Finance was weak. I needed a vehicle to encumber. The PO is the easiest. We essentially have no contract with a vendor. We know that it will be voided after March voting no matter what happens. None of this washed with Mr. Pierce, and he said so. Mr. Moore spoke for 12 minutes and did not mention one iota of the $100K. Mr. Nichols went through the detail of the municipal budget law, RSA 32.7. PO was legally unenforceable, exceeded the $50,000 procurement policy level without selectmen signatures, lacked transparency in vetting in the public. This PO was signed on December the 20th. The selectmen had meetings on the 17th of December and the 27th of December. No mention of this occurred. Why, Mr. Welch? Mr. Nichols' motion that the $100K encumbrance would be voided, should be voided, and the money go to surplus, undesignated fund balance. Selectman Moore said, and he went, "How pure do you want to be here?" That spoke volumes to me as well. This has been a matter of convention. Chairman Griffin, Mr. Bean simply asked about the legality of the matter. Nobody responded that I could see. And Mr. Griffin turned to Mr. Schwartzer and said, "How do you feel about it, Mike? You've never given us wrong information before." And Mike said, "Well, I thought it was a good thing to do. I think that that's what you wanted me to do back in previous meetings." And Mr. Griffin said, "Yes, you're right. Let's take a vote." And guess what it was? 3-2, as it has been many times during the year, and people are looking at that right now, and will be reported on.
15 seconds.
All I got to say is, it's the same old story, and we're back again. The old boys seem to be back in again with their voting authority. That's all I have to say.
Who were the old boys?
It's a term that's going around.
I thought they left last year.
The question now comes down to be the $100,000 purchase order. We requested a legal opinion from town council. We also, and I have to go right back to saying that it was my impression that this board wanted me to encumber $100,000 for the work underneath Lafayette Road, not to deal with the project that's also involved, but literally we have a broken sewer and we've proven that. So anyway, I looked for a vehicle.
Many people agree with you at that point.
Okay. So I worked on a vehicle, and reading under RSA 32.7I, you need to have a purchase order, which is the one thing that I thought would be acceptable. And additionally, the DRA's opinion on the same question was solicited by the Budget Committee. I had direct contact with Mr. Hamilton, who's the acting director of the DRA, and his opinion was the same as legal counsel's, that the purchase order did not meet the letter of the law in regards to 32.7I, so therefore we have voided that, which then took it out of the encumbrance list that was being presented. I believe that the motion or the discussion last 2 weeks ago in regards to this was more to say that, that we needed a legal opinion. This gave us the time to deal with it. We found out that this doesn't work, and so it's been taken care of.
And it never was at any time encumbered.
Absolutely correct.
I feel that the public needs to know that. I think this has been misrepresented. And really, the board did not even get our message from our lawyer and his advice until recently this week.
And I didn't get an answer from the DRA until
Not
late
today.
on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Did you want to continue?
That basically comes down to is that if the board feels that the list is acceptable, I'd look for a motion for the $385,070.84 to encumber the funds for going forward in 2013.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we encumber $385,070.84 against the detail that has been provided by the finance director.
And a second?
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Yes. Essentially, our past understanding was that we could encumber to a purpose as opposed to a legally obligated obligation. Okay. Our understanding now, based on the feedback from the town attorney and DRA, is we have to have a legally obligated contract or other, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this basically changes, I believe, our practice going forward, okay? To this particular one, I assume that all of the other POs that make up this $385,000, other than this $100,000 one, are legally obligated agreements, contracts.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that answers that. Going forward to next year, given the fact that the encumbrances, it would seem to me, have to be approved prior to January 1st, because they have to be legal obligations as of that date, then it seems to me that the whole process has to change and happen earlier, similar to what happened in 2011. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay.
Because as I did this time, I accumulate through the end of the year a list of the open POs. And they're all, as we just discussed, the ones that we're dealing with are all legally binding, et cetera. But there are some times, as I found, to the tune of $45,000, that the PO list that we're dealing with may be incorrect or overstated. So therefore, it takes some time for analysis. Once the PO is set up, that puts the outer limit on it. Then it's my job to come to you and say, okay, I have reviewed these, and this is really the number that we need to encumber. You could say at December 31st, everything on the PO list, encumbered it. But I'm telling you is that I would be uncomfortable doing that because there's probably something in there that's in there because it's an oversight, it hasn't cleared through the system or whatever. This is a mechanical generation from the PO list. It has not been reviewed by the department heads, et cetera, and myself, and then, in essence, yourselves. Okay?
Okay? My problem is the 14,000. That's after the fact.
Oh,
Okay?
all right.
That is for the code book. That is after the fact. That was asked for in January, not in December. And the $100,000 is the same problem. They're both wrong, in my opinion, on both of those issues. So I can't go along with the 385. I could go along with 385 less the 14,000.
I believe, and I'm not sure if it's something that I dream when I get home, but I recall in several conversations with the Director of Public Works as we were talking about this, first at the public hearing when the engineering firm was in, secondly, when I believe we gave him direction to do some camera work in the sewer lines that were there, and then lastly, when he came back to say, you know, it might cost X, that we had given you, or some of us had given you enough that you would have been reasonable to say they want this encumbered. So I don't hold you at all responsible. If it's a problem, it's a selectman's problem, and I'll be happy to say I voted for it, because I think it's the right thing to do for Hampton. We need to get these infrastructure issues resolved, and this is one way of carrying forward some money to achieve that. So I accept the idea that it's not proper per the law. We'll have to deal with that issue. Let us all remember that the need for the work hasn't gone away. The money has gone away. And it's 0.25% of our spending, so it's not as if, I know $100,000 is a large number, but we are running a $25 million business here. So I'm going to be voting for the motion. Thank you, Mr. Schwartzer, for all your work.
And I would like to thank you, Mr. Switzer, too. Maybe we were a little off track this time, getting some advice, and we getting the last late advice from the town attorney. We never did, like I said, there was no encumbrance. It was a matter of discussion. We have, unfortunately, a lot of people here looking that there's a problem. And I'm happy to say that in the 9 years I've been here, I have never seen any funny business or any problems going on. I have full confidence in you, and I will continue to make sure that you're not micromanaged. Thank you.
I don't see how, given the interpretation that we've got on the $100,000 PO not being a legal obligation of December 31st, how we can consider the $14,350 for the code book a legal obligation on December 31st when there was no agreement with the vendor, there was no PO until a week ago. I would make a motion to amend the amount of the $385,070 to $370,720, in which case I will vote for it, because based on the finance director's description that all of the POs were legal obligations, I think we will have a pure list of encumbrances at that point, and I would vote for it. I will not vote for the 385 based on knowing that the 14,350 was not a legal obligation as of December 31st.
Did you want to comment on this, Mr. Switzer?
It comes down to is that I screwed up. I was told by Mr. Welsh to issue a PO or at least take care of it, and I didn't do it in time, and so therefore I apologize for that, and if you want to remove it, then that's fine.
I'll second the amendment.
Did you want to weigh in on this,
No.
Mr. Gerald?
We are raising the standard for being a administrator to a level of godlike behavior. What you're saying is that no mistake is tolerated, and if you don't have it done by midnight of December the 31st, then you can't do it. The gentleman has suggested that it was something that was on the list to do. I have no I have absolutely zero reason not to believe him. And we're saying, okay, a mistake was made, screw you. And I think that's just a little bit too much. So I'm not going to vote for your amendment.
And I call that micromanaging. Just put
Further
that out on
discussion,
the table.
Mr. Chairman. I think the trend we've seen here in the last 2 or 3 months, this is not good at all. And if we're going to condone this in public, once we find out after the fact, 14 days into the next year, that's totally unacceptable. If there's plenty of opportunity at the meeting on the 17th and at the end of December to bring all this stuff forward, and they didn't. So I don't understand how you can say we're setting a high standard. We're just going by the rules.
I have to ask another question. The test that's been established through the conversations with the DRA and the review that Mark has done of the law in question, does the $14,350 still work regarding those two, that, you know, the legal review and the interpretation from DRA? Because there's no reason to continue this, I can't find a word. There's no reason to continue this discussion if it's going to be something else that goes back into the little machine that we have here. So is it going to pass muster or
If
not?
you want to cut it right to the point, was it cut by December 31st? No. Okay.
Is that the rule?
Now,
Go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
But you have to learn what I live with in regards to the time. All right? To an accountant, December 31st is a point in time. I will be dealing with December 31st for the next 6 months. I will be trying to get into the correct year, the correct amount of money, the correct accruals, the correct encumbrances, the correct reporting, etc. I can't do that on December 30th. I will never be able to do that. It takes time to analyze anything. Did I screw up? Yes. If I had pulled that piece of paper out from beneath my folder and said, oh, crap, and put that into the system, you would not be having this conversation or this question. Do I feel that it is a legally binding contract? Yeah, I really do. And I believe it should be encumbered. But you have the right, because of, your board, to kick it through and kick it out. Will I screw up again? Probably. But this is the little things that I have to fix as I go along. I'm making adjustments as we talk when I'm dealing with the books. The books aren't finished. They won't be finished until they're audited. And they won't be finished until after they're audited, because there will be continued adjustments. That's my life. That's what I deal with. If you want to make sure that everything is done on December 31st, find somebody else, because it cannot be done.
Okay, so where do we stand? We have your motion
amendment.
seconded? I don't know.
There's a second for the amendment.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of this amendment? Against? It's 3 against, 2 for. For the original motion. All those in favor? 3, 4. All those against? 2 against. Thank you very much. As informed, Mr. Gerald, we'll be looking for your opinion. We did get your opinion, but late into when all these other comments were already made.
Right. We were actually simultaneously looking for a view from DRA, and mine and DRA came out at the same time. Actually, the problem with DRAs is that regardless of what I think or any other attorney thinks, if DRA were to disallow an appropriation, we'd have a problem.
Okay.
And so it's important to get both. The question was asked from DRA very early on, and it
Took that long.
took that long.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.